Okay, Revelations chapter 13, verses 11 through 18. Let me read these again, and then we will pick up where we left off last time. Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth. He had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke like a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast on his behalf, and made the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose fatal wound had been healed. And he performed great and miraculous signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of men. Because of the signs he was given power to do on behalf of the first beast, he deceived the inhabitants of the earth. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast so that it could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. The number is 666. Okay, let's do a quick review of what we talked about last week. The greatest weapon that Satan has against God and his people is deception. And as we get to the last 7 years of human history as we know it, the tribulation, which is what the book of Revelation focuses upon, the 2 primary deceivers are obviously going to be the Antichrist, who we have spoken about quite frequently already, but also this new person that we just began talking about last week called the false prophet. And the false prophet's primary job on planet Earth is to get the world to worship the Antichrist as God. That's his primary purpose, okay? We talked last week about his character. What type of person is he going to be? Well, he's going to be the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing, okay? He's going to be the ultimate wolf in sheep's clothing. He's going to look like a lamb, as Scripture tells us. What does that mean? Very personable, very nice, very persuasive, etc., etc. But it says he speaks like a dragon, because when he opens his mouth, he speaks the words of Satan. He will be demon-possessed, as will the Antichrist. We talked about his power last week. He's going to have power to create, to do great signs and wonders in the midst of people. And that is what he's going to do to deceive people, even causing fire to come down from heaven. And we talked a little bit about how that might take place. He will be very influential, and he will organize one world religion, which ultimately will become the cult of the Antichrist. Okay, so with that brief background on last week, let's move forward. Look at verse 14. Because of the signs he was given to do on behalf of the first beast, that's the Antichrist, he deceived the inhabitants of the world. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Now notice, this is, again, this beast is wounded by the sword but yet lived, right? So we've already mentioned that several times in chapter 13. So when you see something repeated over and over again, you know that that is a very, very important event. This fake resurrection, this fake assassination is going to be a pivotal event that's going to take place in the rise of the Antichrist. Now, there's a very interesting word here where it says that he was given power and he deceived the inhabitants of the earth. Planao is that Greek word, and the reason I bring that up, planao, we get the word planet from that word. So the Greek word that we get planet from, it means to deceive, but it means to wander, to lead astray, okay? Isn't that interesting that you know, the ancients, when they looked up in the sky and they saw the planets, they didn't know what kind of orbits they were having. They just kind of looked like they were wandering around. But isn't that an interesting description for unbelievers? Wandering bodies? That's your first question. What are unbelievers like? They're like wandering bodies. Okay, they don't know where they're going. That's why I point out these things to you every once in a while. I think that's such an interesting description of them. Again, let me remind you, during this period of time in human history, there is tremendous chaos. There are terrible disasters, horrible disasters and tragedies that are occurring, right? Billions of people are going to be killed in that 7-year period. Billions of people. More people are going to be killed in that 7-year period than at any other time in the history of the world. Stars are going to be falling from the skies. Demons are going to be running around everywhere. There's death and destruction everywhere. The people will be ripe for deception. Your second question, what will the people be? They will be desperate and they will be ripe for deception. And the false prophet is going to come performing these great signs and wonders, and he is going to deceive many, many people. In fact, he is going to deceive everybody on planet Earth except whom? The elect, the true Christians. He's not going to deceive them, but they are going to be few compared to the population of the world, all right? And as I warned you last week, there are false prophets among us right now on planet Earth, so we need to be wise even today, okay? And then we get probably, aside from calling down fire from heaven, one of the most astounding signs and wonders that this false prophet is going to be able to perform. Again, look at verse 14. He ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Now that in and of itself is not surprising, right? We have statues, we have images of famous people, right? Washington, Lincoln, Jefferson, sports heroes, right? We have statues of famous people that we pay homage to all the time. Now, we don't bow down before those statues and worship them, but I believe that this statue that we're talking about here, this image, is going to be part of the abomination that causes desolation. Remember, 3.5 years into the tribulation period, the Antichrist is going to go into the temple in Jerusalem and he's going to desecrate it. And I think part of that desecration is setting up this image that will be an image to himself. But this is no ordinary image. This is no ordinary statue. Your third question, how will this image be different? This image is going to speak. This image is going to speak. Verse 15, he was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast so that it could speak and cause all who refuse to worship the image to be killed here. Now, let's just take a moment and let's think about what is going on here, all right? Listen, throughout the Old Testament, okay, we are given many, many, many examples of satanic pagan idols and idol worship. Idols made of gold and silver, right? And throughout the Old Testament, we get a refrain. We get a repeat over and over and over again. And it's like this. This is out of Psalm 135, but this is just one example. Listen to what it says. The idols of the nation are silver and gold made by the hands of men. They have mouths but cannot speak. They have eyes but cannot see. They have ears but cannot hear, nor is there breath in their mouths. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Habakkuk all say the same thing. So according to your fourth question, according to the Old Testament, what can't pagan idols do? They can't speak. They're not alive, okay? But folks, here we go with Satan's deception. This idol will speak. This statue will appear to become alive. Now, just imagine how unbelievable that must have seemed for people in the past. You know what I mean? That an image or an idol is going to be able to speak, is going to appear as though it's alive. But you know what? Today, with the technology that we have, that really shouldn't come as a big surprise, and I certainly hope that this is going to work. Let me give you an example. Does God exist?
I'm really not equipped to answer such questions.
Do you believe in God? See, I don't even know how to use this stuff. Do you believe in God?
My policy is the separation of spirit and silicon.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. Thank you. So you see, we have inanimate objects that, I don't know about the spirit and the silicon. I don't make those answers up. But that's Surrey, right? You guys know about Surrey, Siri, Surrey, whatever her name is, right? So we have inanimate objects that speak, okay? So this really should not come as a big surprise. So I'm not sure what is going on here, okay? I don't know exactly how it's going to happen. Maybe it's some kind of a hologram, you know? You've seen that in movies and television. I mean, they have that kind of stuff at Disney World. All right, we don't know how far in the future this is going to be, so we don't know what kind of technology is going to be available. But let me assure you this statue image will not be alive. Question number 5, will this image be alive? The answer is no, it will not be alive. It will not be alive. Satan does not have the power of life. He only has the power of death, okay? Now, by the way, just so you understand why I believe that, okay, the word that is translated breath here is the Greek word pneuma, okay, which also is translated spirit sometimes. So Satan is going to give this image or whatever some kind of breath or some kind of spirit that it's going to talk from, okay? But there are two Greek words for life. Bios, where we get the word biology from, that refers to physical life, and the word zoe, which in the New Testament is used for spiritual life. Neither one of those words are used here in this passage, okay? So whatever is going on, this is going to be another instance in keeping with Satan's modus operandi, which is deception. Your question number 6, what will this speaking image be another instance of? The deception of Satan. That's what is going on here, the deception of Satan, okay? Now, one final word here. Again, we're not told who is going to actually be present when this image begins to speak. And I don't think about this, I don't think it's very hard to imagine a situation where in the future every household has a television or a TV monitor, right? I mean, we're probably pretty close to that right now. And I can imagine a situation where we will be required to worship the image that is on our screen, which will be that beast. And that image may talk to us from time to time. And they'll probably be able to see you through that television monitor, right? You ever thought about that these days with all the spying that's going on, that there isn't some two-way camera in your televisions these days, and they can, they can actually see you, okay? And think right now of Hollywood movies and how Hollywood movies make inanimate objects come to life, right? Remember Midnight at the Museum there, that funny movie that went on where all the statues and all the animals came to life, right? Okay, just imagine a hoax that's going on like that. Who knows? But in the final analysis, and here's the point, in the final analysis, it's going to be deception. And the thing that we want to keep track of is Satan wants us to spend all of our time trying to figure out, well, how's he going to do this? And how does this happen? Listen, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be deception. It's going to be the appearance of life where there is no life. Now, isn't that very ironic? The appearance of life where there is no life. In a very dramatic fashion, an inanimate object appearing to come to life. Folks, that's the definition of unbelievers today. There are people walking around this earth right now who have physical life, bios, but they have no spiritual life. They're spiritually dead to the Lord. They have no Zoe. That's what's going on here. Isn't that ironic? The appearance of life where there is no life. That's what's going on here, okay? And then, of course, it says that whoever does not worship this image will be killed, all right? Well, your question number 7, what were people required to do in the Roman Empire? They were required to make a sacrifice to Caesar, usually a pinch of salt. That's what they were required to do, make a sacrifice to Caesar, all right? To worship him as God. Now, of course, as you know, the early Christians did not do that, and they were summarily killed. But the same type of thing is going to happen when we get to the end time, okay? And it's going to be masterminded by the false prophet. He is the one who is going to put together the world religion, and he is the one that is going to force everybody to worship the Antichrist, okay? But it goes even further. Look at verses 16 through 18. He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. The number is 666. Now again, let's take a closer look at this. And as we get into this, first of all, I want a disclaimer, okay? These are my thoughts now, okay? I don't want you to think that this is, what is necessarily in the Bible. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to share with you what I think is going on here. And again, the whole purpose to the study of the book of Revelation was to give us a common sense understanding of what this book is all about, okay? So as we start to look at this today, I don't think it's very difficult to figure out what is going on, okay? This kind of numbering system, folks, it's already here. You already have it. What is it? It's your Social Security number. You already have a number, okay? So when it says question 8, what might be the basis for the number 666? I think one of the bases will be your Social Security number or something like that. Something like that, okay? Imagine the Antichrist is the ruler of the whole world, okay? And if you don't worship him, you are going to be killed, okay? He has complete control over every facet of your life, which means he has complete control over the world economy, okay? Nobody's going to buy or sell or have any financial transactions without him. If you do not have his mark or some kind of universal number, okay, that identifies you, you're essentially going to starve to death. You're going to starve to death because you're not going to be able to buy anything. You're not going to be able to sell anything, okay? Furthermore, I don't think it's too hard to imagine a future in this world where there's no physical money. Look at question 9. What is not too difficult to imagine in the future? No physical money. By the way, I don't know about you, but right now I very seldom use money, okay? Don't you all have direct deposit? Huh? Sure you have direct deposit. Who gets a check from their employer and goes to the bank and actually gets physical cash? Well, you're a little old, I mean, yeah, but there's probably, look at everybody here, you're the only one that does that. That's my point, okay? What happens? What happens, right? There's just an exchange of credit, right? When you get paid on a certain day, your employer credits so much money to your bank account, right? Okay, and then you go to the store and you buy stuff. And what do? You take your plastic and you buy stuff. And then when your bill comes, you go on your computer and what do? You tell your bank to take some credits from your banking account and pay off your credit card. There's no physical money. There's no physical currency that's going on here. I think we're heading right straight into this, okay? Now look, the things that we talk about in the book of Revelations, they really happen. And they really happen, obviously, because it's part of God's plan. But listen, they also happen because they make sense. They make sense. Let me explain what I mean, okay? I think we're at the very beginning of what is going on to a system that ultimately the Antichrist is going to exploit. Question number 11, what will the Antichrist do with a system that is already in place? He's going to exploit it. Again, let me explain. So you're all aware of credit card fraud, right? You're all aware of identity theft. You've heard about the Target scandal and all of the information that was lost, right? I'm sure you're aware of the Obamacare websites and how they're warning us that those are not secure, okay? I think all these problems can be very easily solved. They can be very easily solved. We have to become our own credit cards. We have to become our own credit cards. What do I mean by that? Okay? We have to become our credit card, not a piece of plastic that can be lost or stolen, okay? Think about this. Think about your personal information, your Social Security number, your bank accounts, all of your passwords, right? If somebody got a hold of that information, they would have access to all of your money, right? Okay, fine. What would happen if all of that information was embedded in a computer chip right under your hand or on your forehead and it was tied to your DNA? And it was tied to the fact that you are a live person, okay? So if somebody were to cut off your hand and wave it in front of the monitor would say, no, the hand is dead, right? It's not a live hand, right? So it has to be part of a live body. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Even if somebody had all of your information, they couldn't do anything with it. It wouldn't be important anymore. Why? Because you would be your information. It would have to be embedded in you. Do you kind of understand what I'm getting at? Okay? So think of the NSA, the scandals that are going on. Think of all of the spying that our government is doing. Now, there's a lot of people, by the way, that have your personal information. Don't kid yourself, okay? But what if that personal information was tied to your own flesh and blood? Do you see what I'm getting at? It seems to me, and I may be crazy, fine, I'm crazy, but it seems to me the only way to solve this problem is that we have to be our own credit cards. Not a piece of plastic that can be lost. It has to be us. It has to be in us. Our personal information has to be with us, something that we carry around all of the time. It has to be part of our physical body. Think also of things like, illegal aliens coming across the border, people working without Social Security numbers, right? Think today of people that have Alzheimer's and also pets. You know what they're doing right now, today, this very day? They're putting a computer chip in right underneath their skin with a GPS so that if your pet gets lost or dad gets lost, where's grandpa? Oh, I don't know, he's on 5th and Main, He missed the bus today, okay? They can go and they can find him, all right? Think of how all kidnapping would cease to exist. How are you going to steal a kid if they got a GPS computer chip in him? We can figure out where they are at any point. Do you see what I'm getting at? You have all of these diverse problems, and there is a very simple way. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I'm surprised this hasn't happened already. Just put the thing in right underneath your hand. Put a chip in right underneath your hand. You see, folks, it makes perfect sense. One more thought. You guys all like your cell phones, right? Cell phones got GPS. If you ever get lost, your cell phone can tell you how to get out of it. In fact, if you lose your cell phone, what can you do? You can call up the phone company and say, gee, I lost my phone somewhere. And what do? They find where your phone is, okay? Now, you like that, don't you? Of course, that also means that when you have your phone with you, they can tell wherever you are, so you have no more freedom. You see, there's always a downside to this stuff, okay? That's my point here. The point is, it's not necessarily the system that's evil. It's the person who's going to abuse that system, right? And by the way, there are many people who think that our government is already abusing the system, okay? So when these things happen, and again, this is just my thoughts, I could be totally wrong. I think that's the kind of thing that we're heading into. And I think very shortly, especially when we have more and more identity theft and information that is going to be lost or stolen, that someone's going to come up with the bright idea, hey, why don't we just put it in people? And it'll be tied to your DNA, and that'll be the end. It'll solve the problem overnight, okay? All right. Let's talk about the 666. Verse 17. No one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. This calls for wisdom. If anyone has insight, let him calculate the number of the beast, for it is man's number. The number is 666 or 666. Now, question number 13. You may or may not know this. What do some letters have in some languages? They have a numerical equivalent. Letters in some languages have a numerical equivalent. You've seen statues, or you've seen the sides of buildings where it's dedicated. It doesn't say 1929. It has XLLXVY, and you're going like, what's that mean, right? Those are Latin, Roman numerals, right? Okay? So that's in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Some of the letters also have a numerical equivalent. We don't do that in English. We got letters, thankfully, and we got numbers. But in some languages, the letters are both, okay? So it seems that when the Antichrist comes, if you add up the letters of his name with the numerical equivalent, it's going to come to 666, which is question 14. What will the numerical equivalent of the Antichrist's name be? 666. Now, you're all familiar, I'm sure, with the myriad of ad nauseum examples of who this is, right? So it's a pope, it's Martin Luther, it's Stalin, it's Hitler, it's Nero, it's all these different guys, right? Caesar Nero in Hebrew adds up to 666, okay? You might be interested to know this. An early church father named Irenaeus, okay, who was very influential in philosophy and apologetics, he took the Greek language and he added up the numbers and he came up with a name, Euanthus. That's the name that adds up to 666 in Greek. So maybe the Antichrist name is going to be Euanthus, all right? So just pay attention for that. If anybody comes to the forefront, it's, Euanthus. You go, oh, there he is, right? He's right there for us. Now, having said that, there's another way to look at this, one that I think has great credence, okay? We're told that this is man's number, 666, okay? Question number 15. What is God's number? 7. In biblical numerology, God's number is 7. Man's number is 6. Slaves were supposed to be freed after 6 years. You're supposed to work for 6 days, right? Okay? You plowed your field for 6 years, and then you let the field have a year off, right? Remember we talked about the year of Jubilee. All those kinds of things. What's the Sabbath? The 7th day. That's the Lord's day, okay? So man is what this 666 could represent is man, 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 666. It's imperfect. He's always short of perfection. He will never quite reach God, okay? This is really an indictment. The final form of government and religion on planet Earth is what? 666. Imperfect, imperfect, imperfect. To the superlative degree, it always falls short of the glory of Almighty God. So that is what could be going on here too, okay? All right, two final points. What should Christians do if this type of system begins while we are here? This implanting of chips inside of our hand or on our forehead. What should we do? Well, I've already told you, I think it's already begun with our Social Security numbers, okay? All right, fine. But, when they start to implant things in our bodies underneath the skin, I think that's the deal killer. I think that's where we have to draw the line. I think that's where we have to say, you know what? I'm not doing that no matter what happens, okay? Remember what Paul says, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own, you were bought at a price, therefore honor God with your bodies. 7 times in the book of Revelations, from here on in, we are going to be warned about not having the mark of the beast. Now, I understand that it will not technically become the mark of the beast until the Antichrist comes and takes over the system, right? But to me, and you don't have to agree with me, but to me, putting something in, having your Social Security number is bad enough, but putting something in my physical body so that you can identify me, where I am, and what I do, to me, is just too close for comfort, and I would suggest that we say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, and then we have to suffer the consequences, whatever they may be, okay? And then, of course, the final question here is, what do we do when this system is actually instituted by the Antichrist, if we happen to be around, okay? Or for the people in the future, what should their response be? And I think it's very simple, but it's very difficult. If we are ever forced to worship the beast under penalty of death, if we are ever forced to have the mark of the beast under penalty of death, what do we choose? We must choose death. We must choose death. We must choose death, okay? So, by the way, that's what's going to usher in the widespread persecution that we talk about in the book of Revelation. Remember the 5th seal? The souls under the altar who have been martyred because of the cause of Jesus Christ, okay? That's the kind of thing that is going to be taking place when this begins. Final point is this. Do you see how we're blessed by the rapture of the church? I don't think we're going to have to go through any of this. I think we're going to be long gone before this stuff happens. I think we're going to be taken up in the rapture of the church, and then now people are going to become Christians after we're gone. But I want you to appreciate why we study the book of Revelation right now, okay? That's how we are blessed. And so I don't think we're going to have to be dealing with. But there are generations of ours that are going to have to. Anyway, we'll talk more about this next week. Amen?